Welcome, my fellow seekers of wisdom. You who've given, provided, tried your best to be enough, only to be left confused, wondering what went wrong. Let me ask you something hard. What if it was never about what you did for her? What if love was never earned through sacrifice, but through something deeper? Today's video may challenge everything you've believed about giving and being chosen. We're breaking down 5 things women truly want, and they have nothing to do with favors, money, or effort. This is Stoic insight applied to modern love. If you've ever felt lost in the game of giving too much and receiving too little, subscribe, like, and walk with us here on Stoic Love, where we turn ancient clarity into emotional power. And as you listen today, let this truth take root. You are not loved for your efforts. You are loved for your essence, your presence, your boundaries, your peace. Give from overflow, never from emptiness. Tell me, where are you listening from today? And what's one thing you used to give that you now realize was never truly valued? Comment below. I read everyone. Now let's begin with the first thing women really want. Effort doesn't matter, perception does. You've probably been told your whole life that effort is what counts. That if you try hard enough, show up, plan dates, give gifts, listen well, you'll eventually earn her love. That love is logical, fair, transactional. But I learned the hard way, that's not how women work. I used to believe that if I did everything right, she would stay. That if I gave enough, proved enough, worked enough, she would finally say, yes, you're the one. But effort alone means nothing, not in her world. Because what she's responding to isn't what you do. It's how what you do makes her feel. And that's not rational. That's emotional. That's perception. You can take her to the best restaurant in the city. And if your energy feels insecure, if you're trying to impress rather than express, she will leave that date feeling drained, not drawn in. Meanwhile, another man might take her for coffee, say almost nothing, but carry himself with ease, with purpose, with quiet certainty, and she'll leave, wondering, what is it about him? It's not the act, it's the aura behind the act. And if you're doing all the right things from the wrong place, from anxiety, from fear, from emotional hunger, she'll feel it. Even if she doesn't understand it, her body will whisper, he's not solid. I've been that guy, the one who tried harder every time she pulled away, the one who thought another romantic gesture might fix the distance, but it never did, because all she felt was me trying, not being. And here's the shift. A woman doesn't fall for what you give her. She falls for how she experiences herself when she's around you. Does she feel more alive, more feminine, more emotionally expanded, or does she feel like she's carrying the weight of your validation? This is the paradox. You can do everything right and still lose her, and another man can do far less. But because his actions come from centeredness, presence, and grounded masculine energy, he'll stay in her mind long after he's gone. Marcus Aurelius said the soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. If your thoughts are focused on trying to be enough, you will behave like a man who isn't. And that energy will coat every word, every text, every touch, until she silently decides he's too much and not enough. So what do? You stop performing, you stop proving, you stop asking, what does she want from me? And you start asking, what kind of man do I want to be? Regardless of how she reacts. Because when your actions come from alignment, not anxiety, you become the man who doesn't have to convince anyone of his worth. And that's the man who doesn't chase perception, he shapes it. She doesn't care how hard you try. She cares how your presence makes her feel. So become the kind of man whose mere existence is more powerful than any grand gesture. She wants certainty in your presence. You keep thinking it's about money or looks or what you drive, but it's not. It's about certainty, not in the world, not in the future, not in her, in you. Because when a woman steps into your space, what she's searching for isn't just love, it's stability. Not just physical protection, but emotional gravity. And you can't fake that. I used to think that if I just said the right things, told her I wouldn't leave, told her I was ready, told her she could trust me, she'd relax, she'd open up. But she didn't. because deep down she could feel what I was hiding, my own uncertainty. And nothing, absolutely nothing, kills a woman's desire like sensing a man who doesn't believe in himself. Not the words, not the gifts, not even your loyalty can compensate for the quiet wobble in your core when you doubt your direction, when you question your place in this world. You can't love her into security. You must embody it. And that begins long before you even speak. It's in how you walk, how you pause, how you listen, not to answer, but to understand. It's in the way you hold your center when she tests. Your tone, questions, your motives, throws subtle emotional storms your way, just to see if you'll shake. Because she's not always looking for answers. She's looking for something far rarer, a man who can stand still while everything else spins. Marcus Aurelius said, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." And that's the kind of man she truly wants. Not one who performs peace, but one who lives inside it. I didn't get this at first. I thought I had to impress her, keep things exciting, fix her moods. But the moment I stopped trying to fix her and started owning my own frequency, something shifted. She softened. She leaned in, not because I said anything special, but because she could finally relax into a presence that wasn't leaking energy. See, when you're centered, you give her a gift more valuable than affection. You give her emotional safety. That's what she craves more than status, more than looks, more than charm. She wants to know that when things get messy, when she gets irrational, loud, reactive, you're not going to fold, you're not going to match her chaos. You're going to remain clear, calm, certain. And if you can't do that, if you still search her reactions for your value, if your peace rises and falls based on her mood, she won't trust you even if she loves you. Because love without trust in your presence is fragile. So start here. Before you enter her space, enter your own. Sit with your truth, own your flaws, breathe into your purpose, not to impress, but to align. Because when you radiate certainty, you stop chasing connection, you start creating it. And she will feel it even if she can't explain why, even if she tells herself she's not looking for anything serious, even if she says she needs space. If you become the man who walks into a room and doesn't lose himself to the eyes watching him, you will become the man she stops testing, because your presence becomes her peace. She's drawn to emotional leadership. You think she wants you to solve things, to give her answers, offer advice, fix the situation, but that's not what she's testing for. What she wants, what she truly watches for, is whether you can lead emotionally. And here's where most men fail, not because they're weak, but because they confuse emotional leadership with control. It's not about dominating her feelings. It's about holding space for them. I had to learn this slowly. I used to think that if she cried, I had to cheer her up. If she got upset, I had to calm her down. If she felt anxious, I had to convince her that everything would be okay. But every time I rushed in with solutions, she pulled away. Why? Because I wasn't leading. I was trying to manage her. And women don't want to be managed. They want to feel safe enough to unravel without losing you in the process. She wants to know, can you stay grounded when I can't? Can you hold your emotional center when I lose mine? Can I be a storm without pushing you into fear or reaction? And that is what Stoicism trains in you. Not numbness, not detachment, but inner stillness in the face of emotion. Marcus Aurelius said, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." So when she's angry, you don't mirror the heat. You stay calm. When she's overthinking, you don't argue with her logic, you breathe slower. She follows your rhythm before she understands your words. Because emotional leadership isn't loud, it's anchored. It's knowing that you don't need to react to her feelings, you need to contain them with clarity, not by saying, "Calm down," but by showing through your stillness that nothing she says or feels will unman you. And that's when the feminine opens. That's when she melts, because she knows I can fall apart and he won't. Most men wait for a woman to calm down so they can feel at peace again. But the grounded man brings peace with him. He doesn't wait for the world to offer it. That's emotional leadership. It's not about being right. It's about being centered, especially when she isn't. It's listening deeply, holding eye contact without rushing to respond, letting her express, without making her emotions about you. And it's in those moments when she's the most reactive that your stillness is tested most, not because you're cold, but because you're safe. So don't lead with advice. Lead with depth. Lead with presence. Lead with a tone that says, I'm not here to fix you. I'm here to stay unmoved until you find yourself again. And she'll come back to you not because you forced it, but because you became the gravity she didn't know she was craving. That's emotional leadership, and that's what makes you unforgettable. She craves mystery, not confusion. There's a difference between being hard to understand and being worth understanding. Too many men mistake vagueness for depth. They play games, they pull away without explanation, act cold to seem alpha, or hide their true selves behind a mask of control. But that isn't mystery. That's immaturity disguised as strategy. Mystery isn't about keeping her guessing what mood you're in. It's about carrying so much inner depth that she senses there are layers to you she hasn't even begun to explore. Because here's what I've learned: women don't want to solve a puzzle. They want to discover a presence. And you don't become mysterious by being distant. You become mysterious by being whole, by being so rooted in your purpose, so loyal to your inner world, that even when you're fully present with her, she still feels the pull of the part of you that belongs only to yourself. That's mystery. That's magnetism. I used to over-explain everything. I thought transparency meant safety. I thought if I could just express myself better, she'd never feel insecure. But what happened? The more I tried to make her feel safe, the more I felt her respect quietly erode. Why? Because I stopped having a life she could be invited into and started centering everything around her emotional needs. A woman doesn't want to be the center of your world. She wants to orbit something stronger than her moods. She wants to feel your truth but not own all of it. She wants access to your depth but not entitlement to it. And when she senses that there are still oceans in you that she hasn't touched, not because you're hiding, but because you're busy living, she leans in. That's the difference between mystery and confusion. Confusion feels like instability. Mystery feels like masculinity. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." When your thoughts are always about her moods, her reactions, her approval, your presence becomes predictable. You lose polarity. But when your thoughts dwell in vision, in discipline, in purpose that reaches beyond her, you become the kind of man who doesn't need to be interesting. He simply is not because he hides, but because he's full, because he's not afraid to live his truth without narrating every step of it. So ask yourself, are you confusing her by being inconsistent, or are you inviting her deeper by being quietly complete? Because she will follow your mystery, but only if it comes from a man who's found peace in being unknown. The right woman doesn't want to know everything about you. She wants to spend years discovering you because your energy says, I'm not here to be figured out. I'm here to be felt. And once she feels that, the games end, the confusion stops, and all that's left is the beautiful tension of a man who doesn't need to chase her curiosity because his life already pulls her in. She's addicted to how she feels around you. She'll never remember every gift you gave. She'll forget the restaurant's name, the shoes you noticed, the perfect quote you sent at midnight. But what she'll never forget is how you made her feel when she was next to you, not the words, not the plans, the state. Because women aren't addicted to men, they're addicted to the version of themselves they get to be in your presence. I didn't understand this for a long time. I thought I had to do more, impress more, be more. But no matter how much I gave, it never seemed enough. Until I stopped trying to give and started learning how to hold space, hold ground, hold energy. Because when she's around you, her nervous system is always scanning, not consciously but biologically. Is he safe? Is he solid? Can I exhale? And if she can't feel grounded around you, she won't stay, no matter how good you are. You could be loyal, generous, romantic. But if your energy makes her feel like she's walking on emotional eggshells, she'll pull back. Because love for her is not a resume, it's a resonance. And here's where most men miss the mark. They try to stimulate women when what truly draws her in is your ability to regulate her emotions not with tactics, but with tone, stillness, certainty. She doesn't remember that you paid the bill. She remembers that you weren't anxious about the bill. She remembers that when the food was late and the waiter was rude, you didn't flinch, you smiled, you flowed, you led. And in that moment, her body said, "This man, I can relax here." Marcus Aurelius said very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. And when your thinking is anchored, not chasing, not needing, not proving, you become the state she never knew she needed. Because here's the secret. When a woman feels emotionally elevated around you, when she becomes softer, safer, more feminine in your space, she will chase you not because of what you do, but because of how she feels when you're around. She'll associate you with the best version of herself, the version who doesn't overthink, who doesn't need to protect, who just is warm, open, trusting. And once that emotional blueprint is locked in her memory, you become her emotional drug. But this only works when it's real. You can't fake that energy. You have to earn it by mastering you, by being the kind of man who doesn't crumble under pressure, who doesn't project insecurity, who doesn't expect her to be your peace. You bring peace, because the man she can feel free around is the man she never wants to lose. So forget the flowers if your presence is frantic. Forget the playlist if your posture is ungrounded. Forget the poetry if your eyes betray self-doubt. Give her the one thing no one else does, an emotional climate she craves. And once you do, she'll stop caring what you say and start following who you are. Stop proving your worth. Start living it. At some point, you have to ask yourself, what am I still trying to prove? And to whom is it to her? To women in general, to the echo of that girl who didn't text back 5 years ago. Because the truth is, most men spend their entire lives in performance mode, hustling for approval, performing for attention, bending their identity just to be chosen. I know this because I did it. I dressed for her, spoke for her, even suppressed parts of my truth, thinking it would make me easier to love. But all it did was dilute me. And women can sense dilution. They don't always say it. But deep down they feel it, that you are not whole, that you are still negotiating with yourself just to stay wanted. And here's what no one tells you. The moment you try to prove your worth to her, you've already lost it. Because worth isn't something to be earned in her eyes. It's something to be embodied in your soul. You don't gain value by pleasing her. You express value by being you, without flinch, without performance, without apology. And that's where Stoicism gave me everything. It stripped away the noise. Epictetus said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." In other words, stop talking about your standards, start living them. Stop telling her what kind of man you are, start being the man who doesn't need to announce himself. You don't need louder words, you need deeper roots. Because when your identity is anchored, you no longer chase attraction, you radiate it. She'll feel it in the way you walk into a room without scanning it, in the way you hold silence without rushing to fill it, in the way you can sit across from her fully attentive yet never needing anything. That's the man who shifts her nervous system. That's the man she respects. That's the man she chooses without force, without question. So stop asking, how do I make her like me? Start asking, what kind of man do I refuse to betray, even to be liked? And when you live that answer, when your words match your walk, when your boundaries are quiet but immovable, when your life is led by principle, not people-pleasing, you stop being an option. You become a standard, not just for her, for yourself. So, here's the challenge. Stop tweaking, stop chasing, stop adjusting your volume to match her approval. Instead, own your frequency. Let her rise to it or walk away from it. Because a woman can love a man she doesn't respect, but she will never stay with a man who doesn't respect himself. So be that man, the one who never has to say I'm worthy, because everything about him already says it before he even speaks. She tests your frame before she trusts your heart. You think she's being difficult. You think she's pushing your buttons just to stir the pot, just to see you squirm, just to throw off your day. But what if I told you she's not trying to ruin you? She's trying to read you. She's watching not your words, not your gestures, but the foundation beneath your smile, the stability beneath your charm. Because here's the truth most men never learn. Before she opens her heart, she's going to test your frame. It's not a game, it's an instinct. And if you fail to recognize it, you'll either collapse, lash out, or walk away confused. And you'll miss the chance to be the one man who could have actually held her. I've been there. I took everything personally. Her tone, her questions, the way she suddenly went cold after a beautiful night. And I would react defensive, over-explaining, trying to prove I meant well. But none of it landed, because she wasn't listening to my logic. She was scanning my emotional frame. Could I stay calm when she got chaotic? Could I maintain presence when she pulled away? Could I still see her clearly when she tried to provoke my insecurity? If the answer was yes, she came closer. If the answer was no, she faded. Women don't trust easily, not because they're broken, but because they've been burned by men who looked solid until they were tested. So she'll throw you a curveball not to break you, but to feel you. She'll ask something sharp, make a sarcastic comment, go quiet for 3 days, all of it instinctively engineered to answer one silent question. Are you who you say you are when you're under pressure? And if you break frame, if your mood shifts with hers, if your self-worth rises and falls on her affection, you become just another man who needs her approval to feel whole. But when you hold, when you hear the criticism, but stay calm when you feel the tension, but don't over-explain when you meet her emotional fire with steady masculine breath, that's when something in her begins to open. Not because you passed a test, but because you became a mirror of the emotional safety she's never known. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." She doesn't want you to fix her emotions. She wants to feel that your frame is strong enough to hold space for both hers and your own. That's how trust is built. That's how respect is earned. And that's how love becomes real. Because when a woman tests your frame and finds it unshakable, she relaxes not just into the relationship, but into her feminine self. And that's when she gives you what most men never get, her unguarded heart. So the next time you feel like she's testing, you don't flinch, don't fold, and above all, don't perform. Just stand still in who you are, breathe deeper, soften your gaze, and let her find in your silence the kind of presence that doesn't need validation to stay strong. Because once she sees that she won't test your frame again, she'll trust your soul. The right energy speaks louder than the right words. You've spent years chasing the perfect words, the flawless text, the well-timed compliment, the scripted line that makes her melt. But let me tell you what I've learned the hard way. It's not about what you say. It's about what she feels before you even open your mouth. You could say all the right things, quote Marcus Aurelius, sound emotionally intelligent, even pretend to get her. But if your energy is off, if your tone is tight, your breath shallow, your neediness hidden under borrowed confidence, she'll feel it. And she'll pull away, even if your words are gold. Because women don't fall for speeches, they fall for states, how you carry yourself, how you pause, how you hold eye contact, not to impress, but to connect. It's subtle, but it's everything. I've had women tell me, "You made me feel safe just by being near." And I used to think that came from what I said, but it didn't. It came from who I was being in that moment. No performance, no persona, just me, anchored, steady, quiet in my mind. Your energy is the loudest thing in the room. And when it's real, when it's not forced or reactive, she feels it in her body, not just her ears. Because her nervous system doesn't listen to logic. It listens to vibration, to posture, to calmness under pressure, to stillness behind your smile. You could say nothing and still draw her in if your presence makes her feel held without words. Epictetus taught, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Be the man whose energy speaks before he does. Be the one who walks in and without trying resets the emotional temperature in the room. That kind of man. He doesn't chase, he doesn't explain, he doesn't persuade. He simply exists, and his presence says, "You are safe here, not because I'm perfect, but because I'm real." And when she feels that, when your silence feels stronger than another man's charm, she'll stay close not for your attention, but for your effect. Because that's what she's looking for. Not noise, not performance, but the energy of a man who needs nothing but brings everything. And that can't be faked, it can't be copied, it can only be cultivated. So put the scripts down, let go of the pickup lines, step away from the emotional equations, and ask yourself this: what does my presence say about me when I say nothing at all? Because once your energy speaks clearly, you'll never have to raise your voice to be heard again. And she'll listen with her eyes, with her body, with her trust, not because you chased her, but because you became undeniable. Before we begin, I want to thank you not for watching, but for choosing to face the truth most men run from. You didn't click this by accident. You're here because something inside you refuses to stay average, because you've felt the sting of giving everything and still being left behind. And you're ready to stop bleeding for people who only ever saw your effort, never your essence. I see that in you, and I honor it. This isn't a video to entertain you. This is a mirror. And if you're willing to look deep, not just at women, but at yourself, then together, we'll walk through the 8 truths that no one told you about her desire and your power. Let's begin.